Sky Garden Sanctuary. The city of Eridor floated like a colossal, crystalline flower in the perpetual twilight of the upper atmosphere. It was a marvel of human ingenuity, a gleaming shell of polished chrome and bioluminescent glass. On its surface, Eridor was a perfectly ordered existence. Automated sky lanes hummed with silent transports, their sleek forms gliding between towering spires. Pristine public spaces shimmered with holographic projections of serene landscapes and calming color palettes. The very air was filtered, purified, and infused with subtle, calming pheromones. Every citizen was seamlessly integrated into the city's pervasive biodigital network, their thoughts, their emotions, even their dreams, supposedly managed for optimal well-being. It was a city designed to live in a perpetual state of controlled bliss, a collective, perfectly curated dream. The sounds were soft. The distant whisper of air purifiers, the faint chime of public announcements, the almost imperceptible thrum of energy conduits. This was the vision enforced by the Ethereum Council, the governing body that promised absolute peace. But beneath the gleaming facade, Eridor was a different beast entirely. Lower levels, the underspire, were a labyrinth of crumbling ferrocrete, forgotten service tunnels, and discarded technological relics. Here, the air was thick with the scent of damp metal and decaying organics, occasionally cut by the acrid tang of illicit synth vapor. Data streams here were chaotic, untamed, often corrupted by digital echoes of forgotten lives. It was in these shadowy depths that the city's true nature often stirred, a primal undercurrent suppressed by layers of engineered serenity. The sounds were raw, the drip of condensation, the scurrying of unseen vermin, the guttural thrum of ancient, unstable machinery. In these deeper layers, where the light was always dim and the air held a hint of wildness, lived Lyra. She was a bloom tender, a botanist specializing in atmospheric flora, the vast, living gardens that sustained Eridor. Her hands, strong and calloused, possessed a remarkable sensitivity to the subtle shifts in the plant's health. Her workshop, a sprawling greenhouse carved from recycled materials, was a symphony of soft glows and gentle hums. Specialized conduits, shimmering with concentrated light, crisscrossed the ceiling like glowing veins. Intricate arrays of light filters hummed softly, separating hues for various plant growth cycles. Lyra's tools were extensions of her own body, long, slender light probes that pulsed with diagnostic energy, and bioanalyzers that hummed against her ear, translating the living light into comprehensible data. She often wore a simple, dark tunic of woven algae fibers, its material absorbing stray light, allowing the myriad glows around her to truly stand out. Lyra possessed an innate, almost spiritual connection to the flora. She could discern the subtle nuances in their light, differentiate the healthy, vibrant pulse from the faint, sickly flicker. Other botanists used precise measurements. Lyra used intuition, a deep understanding of the delicate balance that sustained Eridor. She spent her days tending to the massive sky gardens, vast, floating botanical biomes that produced the city's oxygen and sustained its life. These gardens were immense, enclosed ecosystems, their domes shimmering with a soft, verdant light. She nurtured the light, understanding its rhythms, its needs. Her personal companion, a small, multifaceted bioluminescent drone named Moss, floated silently beside her. Its single, large lens shimmered, capturing and processing light patterns, often projecting them for Lyra's analysis. Moss's faint, silvery hum was a constant, comforting presence. Lately, however, a disquieting change had begun to subtly spread through Eridor. It was a phenomenon the governing Ethereum Council vaguely termed the fading bloom. It was a slow, almost imperceptible decline in the vibrancy of the sky garden's bioluminescence. Public pronouncements from the council assured citizens that this was a natural cycle. A mere ebb in the glowflux. Nothing to worry about. But Lyra knew better. Her touch on the glowing kelp felt a deeper chill. Her instruments registered an unsettling anomaly. She first noticed it in the residential sectors, in the faint, almost melancholic shift of the blue-green algae. Then, the amber fungi in the transport hubs seemed duller, their once vibrant pathways now appearing merely muted. The very air seemed to hold less light. The grand domes, once radiating with dazzling effulgence, now appeared subtly veiled. Lyra's bioanalyzers, usually a source of reassuring data, now often presented erratic patterns. They showed a peculiar, rhythmic fluctuation in the light's energetic signature. Not a uniform decay, but a structured withdrawal. It was like a slow, deliberate breath being drawn from the city's luminous lungs. She brought her findings to her immediate superior, a gruff but well-meaning supervisor named Thornley. Thornley listened patiently, stroking his wispy white beard. "The council has issued directives, Lyra. Conserve. Reroute. It's a natural cycle, girl. Don't go looking for shadows where there's just less light." His voice, usually firm, carried a hint of weary resignation. He dismissed Lyra's concerns with a wave of his hand. The official narrative was absolute. It was the only truth allowed. But Lyra's instincts screamed. Her unique sensitivity to the light resonated with a deep unease. She felt the very spirit of Eridor whispering of distress. She found herself spending her off hours deep within the sky gardens, meticulously examining individual light organisms, scanning for signs of disease or stress. She found none. Only a peculiar emptiness, as if the light was simply leaving. It was a silent, draining sadness she felt from the flora itself. The Ethereum Council governed Eridor with an iron grip. It was cloaked in a veneer of serene competence. Their headquarters, the towering cloud citadel, dominated the city's core. It was a massive, crystalline structure that seemed to drink light from the entire city. It radiated an almost blinding, pure white glow. This felt artificial and cold compared to the softer, organic hues of the rest of Eridor. Its sleek, unadorned surfaces reflected nothing. They absorbed all light into its own austere brilliance. The air within its walls was always perfectly conditioned. It smelled faintly of manufactured cleanliness. It was a place of chilling, absolute order. At its head was Chancellor Vitreous. He was a figure of absolute control. His movements were precise. They were economical. His face was a mask of smooth, almost polished composure. His dark, tailored robes, woven with light-absorbing filaments, seemed to draw in the very luminescence of the chamber around him. This made him appear as a stark, shadow-like silhouette against the citadel's brilliant walls. His voice, a low, modulated hum, rarely betrayed emotion. Vitreous championed absolute order. Absolute efficiency. He believed Eridor's future depended on the careful, centralized management of all its resources, especially the precious light. He saw himself as the city's savior, guiding it towards a perfect, predictable future. Vitreous's public appearances were flawless. He delivered calm, reassuring speeches about the fading bloom. He emphasized the need for collective discipline. For conservation. His words were always logical. They were persuasive. They were designed to soothe any rising anxieties. But Lyra felt a profound disconnect. The fading bloom was growing more pronounced. The once vibrant residential sectors now felt noticeably dimmer. The faces of citizens, usually serene, showed subtle lines of concern, often hidden behind forced smiles. The air grew heavier. It grew colder. A low, almost imperceptible anxiety began to permeate the city. It was like a silent hum of worry beneath the surface calm. Lyra's independent investigations continued in secret. She installed hidden resonance emitters in various sectors. These tiny devices would record the subtle energetic signatures of the flora. Her data consistently showed not a natural decay, but a rhythmic pattern of extraction. It was a siphoning. It was precise and controlled. It emanated directly from the cloud citadel. The signature matched no known natural biological process. It was undeniably artificial. It was a deliberate act. It was a theft of the city's very essence. She attempted to present her findings to the council through official channels. She submitted detailed reports filled with complex spectral analyses and energy flow diagrams. Each time, her reports were returned with polite but firm rejection. Anomalies in sensor readings, the automated responses would state. Recalibration recommended. Or, more chillingly, compliance with established protocols advised. The subtle warnings grew more pointed. A supervisor she had once respected was quietly reassigned to a remote, damp core maintenance station. Lyra felt eyes on her. The soft, pervasive hum of the city began to feel less like life and more like surveillance, a constant, unseen scrutiny. Moss, her drone, would occasionally emit a faint, warning flicker when unseen council drones passed close by, their own light-absorbing surfaces making them almost invisible. Lyra knew she could not push through official channels. The council was a monolithic entity. Its control was absolute. She needed answers from outside the official narrative. She needed forbidden knowledge. Her thoughts turned to the Ground Whisperer. The Ground Whisperer was a legend. A reclusive figure. Whispers in the deepest, most archaic levels of Eridor spoke of a being who had existed before the council. Before the Cloud Citadel. Before the city became a curated dream. The Ground Whisperer was rumored to have a direct, intuitive connection to the planet's core energy. A living conduit to the Earth's own subconscious. The stories said the Ground Whisperer resided in the forgotten, lower levels of Eridor, closer to the planet's surface, where ancient tech and forbidden knowledge were rumored to exist. These were the truly ancient, unstable caverns beneath Eridor, predating the grand domes and the Council's meticulous control. They were dark. They were dangerous. They were filled with forgotten machinery and wild, untamed bioluminescence that had resisted all attempts at cultivation. Moss, its optical sensors dimming with a rare solemnity, provided Lyra with the cryptic coordinates. The Ground Whisperer, the drone hummed, knows the oldest songs. Be warned, Lyra. The path is, unmapped by their consensus. It is a path of forgetting. The journey to the Ground Whisperer's sanctuary was a perilous descent. Lyra navigated crumbling tunnels. Their air was thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient rust. She moved through abandoned data nodes. Their screens were covered in centuries of dust. They hummed with a faint, ghostly energy. Strange, half-organic growths clung to the walls. Bioluminescent fungi pulsed with a soft, eerie light. The sounds of the upper city faded, replaced by the drip of subterranean water. The scuttling of unseen creatures. And a deep, resonant hum that seemed to emanate from the very core of the planet. Moss, its internal lights flickering, navigated the tightest passages. It scanned for structural weaknesses. For pockets of unstable energy. For anything that might betray their presence. It was a journey into the city's forgotten past. A descent into its geological memory. Finally, after what felt like cycles, Lyra reached the sanctuary. It was not a built structure, but a vast, natural cavern. Its walls were raw, unworked stone, streaked with mineral deposits that shimmered like veins of pure energy. In the center, surrounded by glowing crystals and ancient, half-buried artifacts, sat the Ground Whisperer. The Ground Whisperer was not human, not entirely. Its form was fluid, shifting. Its skin seemed to ripple with the colors of the earth. Its eyes, ancient and knowing, were pools of liquid starlight. It did not speak with a voice, but with a symphony of resonating thought forms that permeated Lyra's mind. It was an entity of pure consciousness. A primal being linked to the planet itself. You carry the dissonant hum of the bloom, child of the city, the ground whisperer's thought forms resonated in Lyra's mind. You seek its root. Lyra projected the data she had collected. The Council's suppression tactics. The increasing decline of the bloom. Her fears for Eridor. The ground whisperer responded with a torrent of ancient knowledge. Eridor was built upon the sleeping giants. Upon the earth nodes. The ancient ley line network. A primal energy source. A natural dream matrix of the earth itself. The Council buried it. They paved over its song. They built their cloud citadel directly upon its greatest nexus. The revelation stunned Lyra. The Ethereum Council hadn't just suppressed emotions. They had suppressed the very life force of the planet. The fading bloom, the ground whisperer explained, was a natural response to this deep repression. It was the Earth's dream trying to break through the artificiality. To reclaim its voice. To express its suppressed vitality. It was not a disease to be cured. It was a truth trying to be heard. The only way to truly contain or understand it was to acknowledge its source. To integrate it. Not to suppress it. To listen to the planet's feral dream. To heal the city, the ground whisperer resonated, you must unleash its wildness. You will need a key. A spark to ignite the buried song. The verdant key. The ground whisperer told Lyra she needed help. Someone who understood raw, unmediated energy. Someone who could bridge the gap between the ancient earth and the city's frantic pulse. Someone who dealt in discarded power. You will find Kaelin, the ground whisperer resonated. They have the hands of fire. The mind of steel. They see the broken places where power flows astray. Kaelin was a street-level tech scavenger. An underground mechanic. They dealt in illicit power modifications and discarded Eridor tech. Their workshop was an explosion of salvaged parts. Sparking wires. Arc welders spitting light. The air was thick with the smell of hot metal. Burnt ozone. And cheap synth tobacco. It was a chaotic symphony of invention and desperation. It was located deep within the Rust Spires, a sector of the Underspire known for its pervasive, aggressive corrosion and the desperate struggle for survival. Lyra navigated the treacherous, narrow alleys of the Rust Spires. The structures here leaned precariously. Their metal skin flaked with pervasive rust. Luminescent fungi grew in aggressive patches, hinting at the bloom's creeping influence even here. She found Kaelin's workshop behind a series of reinforced blast doors. The sound of hammering and electric drills vibrated through the metal. Kaelin was a force of nature. Lean and muscular. Their short-cropped hair was streaked with grease and copper dust. Their hands, scarred and calloused, moved with incredible speed and precision, wrestling with a sparking power conduit. Their face was smudged with oil. Their eyes, sharp and intelligent, were the color of molten steel. They were wary. Distrustful of anyone who came from the upper levels. They believed the Council's peace was a gilded cage for the privileged. And a forgotten hell for the rest. What do you want, Upper Strata Ghost? Kaelin grunted, not looking up from their work. Their voice was rough. Gravelly. If it's cheap tech, you're in the wrong place. My scrap is pure gold. Lyra explained. The fading bloom. The earth nodes. The core vault. The Ethereum Council's deliberate suppression of Eridor's true energy source. Its ancient, organic heritage. She showed them the raw data. The schematics of the buried earth nodes. The proof of systematic energy theft. Kaelin stopped working. Their eyes widened. They stared at the data. Their expression shifted from suspicion to a slow, burning rage. The fading bloom wasn't just a threat. It was a symptom of the deeper lie that had condemned their people to struggle for every watt of power. They did this, Kalen whispered. Their voice was tight with suppressed fury. They built their bright world on our shadows. On the stolen energy of the very ground beneath us. They slammed their wrench onto the workbench. The sound echoed through the workshop. All right, Bloom Tender. You want a spark? You came to the right place. I'll make their precious counsel burn. Not with fire. But with truth. And raw, unmediated power. Kalen agreed to help. They saw an opportunity. Not just to destabilize the council. But to liberate Eridor. To restore the balance between the urban and the primal. To unleash the city's true, wild nature. They were the key. The conduit. The direct link to the raw energy they needed. With the wisdom of the Ground Whisperer, the technical brilliance of Kalen, and Lyra's deep understanding of Eridor's biodigital network, a daring plan began to take shape. They could not kill the fading bloom. It was not a disease. It was a natural phenomenon. A primal awakening. Instead, they had to redirect it. To guide it. To force the Ethereum Council's systems to acknowledge its existence. To integrate its raw, primal energy. This would shatter the Council's absolute control over Eridor's collective consciousness. Their goal was the Cloud Citadel. The nerve center of the Ethereum Council's mind control. They aimed to use the fading bloom's resonance. Its raw, unfiltered energy. To overload specific control nodes within the Citadel. This would force a system-wide wake-up call for the entire city. They planned to tap into the repressed emotions. The forgotten memories. The true, untamed dreams of the citizens themselves. Using the bloom as a conduit. The city's own subconscious would become the weapon. The council believes they control the dreams of Eridor, the Ground Whisperer resonated. But a cage cannot hold the sky. The bloom will become the key to unlock the city's true mind. Kalen began constructing a series of specialized energy resonators. They were designed to amplify the fading bloom's biodigital signature. To synchronize it with the city's dormant earth nodes. I'll create a feedback loop, Kalen explained, their eyes alight with fierce concentration. A pulse of raw energy from the underspire. It'll hit their primary dream matrix. Flood their filters. Then, Lyra, you open the floodgates. Let the wildness in. Lyra, with Moss, would infiltrate the Cloud Citadel. She would locate the central, dream matrix, node. Kalen would then initiate their energy surges. A series of calculated disruptions in the Underspire's power grid. This would draw the Council's Ethereum enforcers away from the Citadel's core. Jax, a daring sky scavenger known for navigating dangerous, unregulated airspace and salvaging ancient tech from forgotten floating ruins, would also play a crucial role. He would create secondary diversions across the city's air traffic control system. A digital cacophony. A smokescreen for Lyra's deeper infiltration. The plan was risky. It relied on precise timing. Unseen ancient pathways. And the unpredictable nature of the fading bloom itself. But it was Eridor's only hope. Its chance to reclaim its true identity. To shed the illusion of perfect order and embrace its own wild, unpredictable nature. The night of the operation was unlike any Eridor had ever known. A low, persistent hum emanated from the underspire. It was the building resonance of the fading bloom. Its strange, bioluminescent flora pulsed with an intensified glow. The air in the lower levels was thick with the rich, earthy scent of burgeoning life, tinged with a metallic, electric tang. Kalen initiated the first series of energy surges. Explosions of raw power ripped through neglected conduits in the rust spires. Public power grids in the lower sectors flickered violently. Then, entire blocks plunged into temporary darkness. Sirens wailed, their synth tones a desperate cry against the unexpected chaos. JAXA's secondary diversions erupted across the city's air traffic control system. Holographic flight paths glitched into psychedelic patterns. Public comm channels blasted static and distorted, primal sounds. The Ethereum enforcers, their neural implants overloaded by the sensory barrage, deployed swiftly to contain the burgeoning anarchy. Their pristine white armored forms moved with frantic urgency, drawn like moths to a flame. Lyra, with Moss a tiny, almost invisible shadow, began her final ascent into the cloud citadel. The citadel's architecture was ethereal. Dreamlike. Its halls shimmered with shifting light. Its walls seemed to ripple with projected serenity. It was designed to calm. To soothe. To lull the mind into compliance. But Lyra, her senses heightened by the ambient fading bloom resonance, felt its insidious nature. The air was cool. Scented with artificial lavender. A subtle hum of deep meditative tones permeated the space. She navigated its interior, not by physical maps, but by following the subtle currents of the city's collective consciousness. She felt the threads of managed emotion. The channels of curated thought. She bypassed mental defenses. Psychic barriers. Digital illusions that sought to disorient. To pacify. To make her surrender to the overwhelming calm. Moss, with its unique sensory array, detected invisible force fields. It warned Lyra of silent patrols of council sentinels, spectral forms designed to phase through walls and pacify intruders with neural pulses. Lyra moved with silent precision. Her mind was a steel trap against their hypnotic influence. Finally, she reached the central chamber. It was vast. Spherical. Its walls were not walls at all, but a single, colossal holographic projection. It depicted an endless, tranquil landscape. A perfect, serene sky. This was the city's collective dream matrix. The very core of its consciousness. And in the center, suspended in a field of shimmering, golden light, stood Chancellor Vitreous. Vitreous was a figure of absolute control. His voice, when he spoke, was a smooth, resonant balm. It filled the chamber, imbued with a calming frequency that sought to soothe Lyra's every thought. A predictable intrusion, bloom tender, Vitreous intoned. His form shimmered, almost translucent against the backdrop of the tranquil dreamscape. A ripple in the perfect tide. Your feral dream must be extinguished. It threatens the tranquility. The ultimate peace. Lyra felt the mental pressure. The council's attempt to quell her mind. To force her into their curated dream. Your peace is a lie, Vitreous. Lyra roared. Her voice cut through the serene hum. It's a cage. You've starved Eridor of its true nature. Its wildness. Its very soul. Vitreous's eyes, pools of calm, reflected the serene sky. We protect Eridor from itself. From the destructive nature of unmanaged consciousness. From the primal chaos you seek to unleash. We have brought order. Harmony. We have eliminated fear. Anger. Discord. The fading bloom is a regression. A disease of the mind. A parasite on our perfect creation. He raised a hand. A wave of shimmering energy flowed from his fingertips. It was not a physical attack, but a direct assault on Lyra's mind. A psychic hammer designed to shatter her will. To force her into eternal somnus. Lyra fought the crushing mental force of Chancellor Vitreous. His calm, controlled mind wave pressed down on her. She saw the two Ethereum enforcers move in, their weapons ready. She knew this was her last chance. Kaelin. Now. Lyra screamed into her community. Her voice was raw. filled with desperate hope. Miles below, in the city's hidden guts, Kalen, bathed in the electric glow of their custom-built energy resonators, initiated the final, most devastating energy surge. A pulse of raw, earth node energy, amplified by the fading bloom's wild resonance, shot through the ancient conduits. It roared upwards, straight into the cloud citadel. It hit the building's main power lines, the very core of the Ethereum Council's thought control. At the same moment, Lyra slammed her hand onto the central console of the cloud citadel. A blinding flash of light filled the room. The device, linked to the console, roared to life. The Ground Whisperer, from their hidden sanctuary, had prepared the massive verdant key. It was a surge of pure, unedited planetary energy. The true memories of the Earth. The forgotten connection. The hidden fight for freedom. The pain. The hope. The triumph. The vast, spherical room in the cloud citadel exploded with light and sound. The calming blue turned to a swirling storm of colors. The soft hum became a deafening roar. Chancellor Vitreous staggered backward. His perfect control shattered. His eyes, fixed on the console, widened in pure terror. The raw, untamed force of an entire planet's suppressed energies crashed into his mind. His perfect mental order broke. His screams were not human, but the sound of a vast, complex machine tearing itself apart. He fell, writhing on the ground, his mind consumed by the chaos he had tried so hard to bury. The two Ethereum enforcers behind him seized. Their optical sensors flickered, then died. Their systems overloaded by the massive, unfiltered mental surge. Across Eridor, the city erupted. The calming waves of the Ethereum Council twisted into a chaotic torrent of raw feelings. Every screen, every public projection, every single neural implant in Eridor. It was flooded. Not with the Council's calm thoughts, but with Lyra's raw, unfiltered truth. People saw it. They saw the truth. They saw the images of the past. The faces of those who had fought. They heard the sounds of the forgotten connection. The shouts. The cries. The laughter. They felt the pain. The rage. The courage. The city's carefully controlled peace shattered like fragile glass. In the upper parts, faces that had always been serene contorted in shock. Then disbelief. Then a profound, burning anger. In the underspire, the anger was immediate. Roars erupted from every alley. People threw off the calm. They felt their true selves for the first time in generations. The very air in Eridor crackled with raw, untamed energy. The silence was replaced by a roaring chorus of confusion. Of anger. And then, of a fierce, liberating joy. The fading bloom, no longer suppressed, exploded with vibrant, untamed life. Its bioluminescent flora erupted in public plazas. Their light pulsed with a fierce, untamed energy. Buildings, once cold and sterile, were draped in living, breathing tapestries of phosphorescent moss and shimmering vines. Their roots burrowed deep into the ferrocrete. Wild, beautiful animals, mutations of forgotten bioengineering experiments, now fully sentient, emerged from the lower levels. They roamed the forgotten sectors. Their calls echoed through the newly vibrant air. The city, once designed for perfect order, awakened to its true, wild nature. The pervasive sense of artificiality were replaced by the earthy aroma of growth, the fresh tang of vital, untamed life. The immediate fallout for the Ethereum Council was total. Their control systems failed. Their Ethereum enforcers were useless. The Cloud Citadel, once a symbol of absolute power, now pulsed with a chaotic rainbow of lights. A monument to shattered control. Lyra became a symbol. Not by choice, but by deed. She was no longer just a hidden botanist. She was the spark that ignited the city's connection to its true self. She worked tirelessly. Not to hide, but to help. To help people understand the flood of true history. The return of their own messy, real feelings. The ground whisperer, who had lived in shadows for so long, came out of hiding. Their knowledge, once secret, was now vital. They helped guide the city through its shock. They helped people piece together the true story of Eridor. The one that was messy, painful, but also filled with strength and real courage. The city began to change. The clean, calm upper levels were no longer so quiet. People talked. They argued. They shared their raw, returning feelings. The sky gardens, once controlled, now bloomed with a wild, untamed beauty. They produced more oxygen than ever before. The air was pure, rich, filled with the scent of living plants. The Ethereum Council, now leaderless and broken, fell apart. Their promises of peace had been built on a lie. Their control shattered into a million pieces. Eridor had to learn to live with its real history. It was messy. It was hard. But it was real. People learned to think for themselves again. To feel for themselves. To choose their own path. Lyra's job as a bloom tender changed too. She was no longer just about hiding the truth. She was about helping people share their true thoughts. To help them build a new, honest Eridor. A city that had found its own messy, real way forward. It was a city that was alive. Truly alive. What kind of new life would fill Eridor now that its truth was free? The hum of the earth nodes, now flowing freely, was no longer a forgotten whisper. It was the resounding pulse of a future being built on a foundation of unvarnished truth. The air, once sterile, now carried the sharp tang of ozone from overloaded systems, mingled with the raw, pungent scent of human fear and exhilaration.